Keys open doors. Keys open doors. Keys open doors. Keys open doors.
Yo, it's your boy Keys to the Game Boxing, and I'm back at y'all with another one. I first want to thank all the subscribers, new and old, for coming back, checking out the channel. Please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe, and especially comment on this one. I got a banger for you guys. We're going to talk about the best welterweight in the world today. The best welterweight at 147 pounds, Errol Spence Jr., the truth, or Terence Bud Crawford. Don't come in here talking about 135, 140 pounds. We're talking about 147. All right? We're going to talk about their last 7 opponents, and we're also going to talk about who their opponents fought, because the quality of the opponent is also important. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Errol Spence right now is the most dominant 147 pounder that they got. He done beat everybody in the division that he can. He's steady stepping on top of everything that he could throughout injuries, throughout tragic situations. Look at Errol Spence Jr.
These niggas gotta pay for.
All right, so we're going to talk about Errol Spence first. Errol Spence is 28-0, 22 knockouts. He currently holds 3 of the 4 major titles, IBF, WBA, and WBC belts. And first fighter out of the 7 on his list, we're going to talk about Kell Brook. He fought Kell Brook in 2017 in England, where he won the IBF title. Let's talk about Kell Brook's opponents. Now, Kell Brook beat Sean Porter for the IBF belt in 2014. His first loss ever was at middleweight against Triple G in 2016. He'd never lost at welterweight until Errol Spence in 2017. He fought twice in 2018, left for a couple years, had 1 fight in 2020 before fighting Crawford the end of 2020. So that was Kell Brook, whom Errol Spence fought. The next fighter on Errol Spence's list of 7, number 2, is Lamont Peterson. He fought Lamont Peterson in 2018. That was a title defense, IBF title defense for Errol Spence. Lamont Peterson started his career at 140. He's a former 2-division world champ. He lost his first big fight to Tim Bradley in 2009 for the WBL belt, lost by unanimous decision. He fought to a draw with Victor Ortiz in 2010. He fought and beat Amir Khan by split decision in 2011. He won the IBF and WBA belts. But Peterson tested positive for PEDs, and he was stripped of the WBA belt. Also, he fought to a draw with against Danny Garcia in 2015. He won the WBA belt. He beat David Avanesian in 2017. That name sounds familiar. Same guy that Bud fought in December of 2022. Fighter number 3 on Errol Spence's list is Carlos Ocampo. He fought Carlos Ocampo in 2018. That was an IBF mandatory that he had to satisfy. He knocked out Ocampo in the first round. Ocampo was an undefeated fighter at 22-0. Fighter number 4 on the list was Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a 4-division champion, future Hall of Famer in my eyes. He won titles at 126, 130, 135, and 140. Mikey Garcia beat guys like Orlando Salido. He beat him in 2013 for the WBO belt at 126. He beat Roman Martinez the same year for the WBO belt at 130. He had some promotional problems, came back in 2017 and beat Zlatican. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I know I butchered that. He beat him at 135 for the WBC belt. Also in 2017, he fought against Adrian Broner at 140 and captured the vacant WBC belt. I think that was the diamond belt at the time. But Mikey Garcia went back down in weight to 135, where he beat Robert Easter and won and became unified champ at lightweight. All right, so that was fighter number 4 on Errol Spence's list. Number 5 is Sean Porter, 2-time welterweight champion. He fought Sean Porter. And talk about Sean Porter. Sean Porter won the IBF belt from Devin Alexander in 2013. Sean Porter beat Paulie Malignaggi in 2014. He lost his IBF belt to Kell Brook in 2014. He came back and beat Broner in 2015. He lost to Keith Thurman in a close fight in 2016. It was a good fight. He beat Andre Berto in 2017. And in 2018, he beat Danny Garcia by unanimous decision and won the WBC belt. He beat Ugas by a split decision in 2019. That was a very close fight. And in 2019, he fought Spence in a unification fight for the IBF and WBC belts. He lost by a split decision in another close fight. for Sean Porter. After he beat Sebastian Formella in 2021, he contemplated retirement, but he fought Crawford in 2021, and he was knocked down, I think, twice in that fight. The corner threw in the towel. Crawford got the TKO win in 10, I think, in the 10th round. Fighter number 6 is Danny Garcia, that Errol Spence fought, former unified champ, WBA, WBC, and Ring Magazine fighter. Danny Garcia is a borderline Hall of Famer. He beat guys like Eric Morales, who was a Hall of Famer, and he was over the hill at the time. He beat Eric Morales for a vacant WBC belt at 140 in 2012. He fought and unified against Amir Khan in 2012 and won the WBA and WBC belt from Khan. He KO'd Khan in the 4th round. In 2012, he rematched Eric Morales, knocking him out in the 4th. In 2013, he beat Zab Judah by unanimous decision, Hall of Famer. In 2013, he also fought Lucas Matisse, who was the boogeyman at the time, was knocking out everybody. Danny Garcia beat Lucas Matisse by unanimous decision. In 2015, Danny Garcia fought Lamont Peterson. At the time, Lamont Peterson, I think, had 2 losses. At the time, they fought at a catch weight, so no titles were on the line at that time. Garcia won by majority decision. Peterson, I think, had the IBF belt, so no titles were on the line because, again, it was at a catch weight. In 2015, Danny Garcia KO'd Paulie Malignaggi. Malignaggi is also a former champ, a 2-division world champ. He won belts at 140 and 147. Danny Garcia also beat Robert Guerrero, who was also a 2-division world champ at featherweight and super featherweight. Danny Garcia fought Keith Thurman in 2017. He lost a split decision. I think at that time Keith Thurman had already beat Sean Porter for the WBA regular belt at that time. And still on Danny Garcia, 2018 he fought Sean Porter for the vacant WBC belt. He lost by unanimous decision. We already talked about Sean Porter being a 2-time welterweight world champ. And then, of course, Danny Garcia fought Errol Spence in 2020, where he lost by unanimous decision. IBF and WBC belts was on the line. Lastly is, for Spence, is Yordenis Ugas, WBA world champ. Ugas fought Sean Porter in 2019, lost by a split decision in a close fight. He beat Abel Ramos. He won a split decision for a vacant WBA belt. And he beat Pacquiao. That was his coming out party. Unanimous decision, becoming the WBA super champ. And then, of course, he fought Errol Spence. TKO loss in 2022.
None of us are afraid to fight anyone out there. It just so happens that most of us are on the PBC side.
All right. We're going to get into talking about Terence Bud Crawford. Both of these guys is considered to be best fighter in the world, pound for pound, whichever way you swing it. So, Terence Crawford, 39-0, 30 knockouts, WBO title holder. So, first fighter on Terence Crawford's list at welterweight, 147 pounds, 2018, he fought Jeff Horn. This is when Terence Crawford won the WBO belt. He beat Jeff Horn, knocked him out, stopped him. Jeff Horn's resume is lackluster. He only has one significant win, and that's over Pacquiao in 2017. So, fighter number 2 on Terence Crawford's list. 2019, he beat Amir Khan. Amir Khan at the time had already had 4 losses. He was knocked out 3 times. He's a former unified champ at 140. He won the WBO belt and IBF belts. Amir Khan never won a title at welterweight. So, moving on to the number 3, the next fighter on the list. 2018, Terence Crawford fought Jose Benavidez, who was an undefeated fighter. Looking at his resume, unfortunately, it doesn't look like Jose Benavidez had any significant wins. In 2019, we're moving on to the next fighter, number 4 on Terence Crawford's list. 2019, Aegis Kavalauskas, a.k.a. Mean Machine. A lot of people say that Terence Crawford was knocked down in this fight, but it wasn't called. Mean Machine had no significant wins on his resume either, but he did beat David Avanesian by knockout, a guy that Terence Crawford fought and knocked out as well. Fighter number 5 on Terence Crawford's list is Kell Brook. He fought Kell Brook in 2020. He had 2 losses at the time. Those 2 losses, of course, was from Triple G and Errol Spence. We talked about Carol Brook, former IBF champ. He beat Sean Porter in 2014 by majority decision. All right. Fighter number 6 is Sean Porter, that Terence Crawford beat and stopped. We talked about that. We talked about Sean Porter's resume. We know he has an extensive resume, great credentials. He's a 2-time welterweight champ at 147 pounds. Sean Porter fought the best of the best. Fighter number 7 on Terence Crawford's list is his last fight, which was on BLK Prime, David Avanesian. He fought David Avanesian in 2022. At the time, David Avanesian had 3 losses. As far as significant wins for David Avanesian, he did beat Shane Mosley in 2016. He had, but Shane Mosley at the time, I think, had 8 or 9 losses. Shane Mosley is a Hall of Famer, of course. David Avanesian also lost to Lamont Peterson in 2017 for the WBA welterweight title. So that is the 7 fighters on Terence Crawford's list. We talked about the 7 fighters on Errol Spence's list. Without being biased, looking at the two fighters and their opponents, their last 7 opponents at welterweight, the opponents, I would have the fighters that Terence Crawford and Spence fought, I would have to give the edge to Errol Spence Jr. He fought top guys. He fought guys that has extensive resumes, that have been unified, that have been champions, and Terence Crawford not so much. I'm gonna leave it up to you guys. I want you guys to comment, subscribe, hit the like button, share this video, get opinions from your peers. Again, hit the bell icon to be notified of when we release new content. This was a fun video to do. It was a great breakdown. You guys tell me who's the best fighter pound for pound at 147 pounds in the world today. And with that being said, we out of here.